Hey guys, I'd like to introduce a vision of a future for mental health. A new day, a new dawn is dawning on mental health as the sky lights up with the possibilities. A new horizon is glistening. I envision it to be like a heartbeat, taking in the downtrodden, the broken, the empty, the depleted, infusing them with oxygen, the rich, vitalizing force of meaning, purpose, and connection, and then sending them out into the world, colorful, full of vitality. So let's explore this in a few sections today. We'll talk about where the referrals will come from, the first step of this interconnected model of crisis stabilization as we move from an individualistic input towards a monastic rhythm where it's very collective. And then our individual gifts get refined more towards individuality. And then we leave the system to transform culture at large because we're part of a larger system. And Maslow added self-transcendence above self-actualization in his hierarchy. So let's step into this today. Step into a world infused with nature, where we tap into the possibilities, the configuration, the wiring that we're composed with, where we get a connection with our true nature. So I see this as connection with little tiny pods, private tiny pods that are connected to this larger central hub set within lush, natural, beautiful, restorative settings. So each person will have their own private little tiny home, which will then be connected through a tunnel to a larger little pod, an entertainment pod, a place with a kitchen, a gathering space. So you can have as much privacy and as much community as you want. The pods will all form a micro community. And then this micro community will in turn be connected to this larger home center, which has some of the aspects that we're going to touch on today. This is how I envision the home center. So where will we get referrals from? We can get referrals from private clients, from hospitals, and from crisis homes. People can come in on one of the levels that they resonate with based on an assessment. If they're in crisis and they're a danger to themselves or others, they would go into our version of a psychiatric hospital, which is the crisis stabilization unit. But people can also come in on other various levels, like the monastic level and the self-actualization neurodiversity gifts level. We can have local community versions of these with a larger home base and training hub as we're depicting today. But these things can happen in both rural and urban communities where variations of this pattern can be implemented in our hometowns so that we can stay connected to our loved ones, to our systems and our dynamics that we find ourselves in. Where should this home base be? I kind of think it'd be a good idea to have it in San Diego or Hawaii, one of these naturally restorative places with amazing weather and with this topography and foliage that just create a healing ambience. So let's explore the crisis stabilization section, our version of a psychiatric hospitalization, which would be voluntary. This would involve a number of different evidence-based practices and models. People would get daily therapy and spiritual direction. When I was psychiatrically hospitalized, I got no therapy and no spiritual direction. I also didn't have my own private environment. So I was in a crisis already and then thrust into a room with a stranger to live with them who was also having a crisis. This I didn't think was very conducive to mental health. So this would give us as much privacy as we want with the input from outside sources like therapists and spiritual directors. It would incorporate approaches like peer support, family systems, both internal family systems and incorporating the larger family dynamic in this healing modality, and open dialogue, which is finding a lot of success in the Scandinavian countries, that there's actually something larger that can emerge when we genuinely sit and listen to people and we engage in this liminal space that evolves between us. There'll be access to all sorts of creative expression, this therapeutic and cathartic creative expression, art, music, dance, and writing. Medication will be optional. There will be teams of psychiatrists who can administer it and who can consult, and then the person can choose to take it or not choose to take it. People will be able to detox from harmful substances, harmful people, harmful energies, and instead fill themselves with goodness and beauty, including we are what we eat, right? So creating custom created organic meal plans based on chromosome analysis and preferences. We'll have visits and guidance from people on the more integrated levels of the system, from the monastic rhythm and the school for the gifted and the cultural synergy levels, because these visits will inspire the person in the crisis with hope, with a trajectory of where things can go, and will also in turn inform the people on the more integrated levels with new information and new ways to see the thing that they've gone through, their own experiences, and develop a framework and be able to try to apply this framework in lived experiences. There'll be optional virtual reality immersive experiences on every one of these levels for both therapeutic reasons and for connection to the various different pods, to the internal system, but also connection to the systems of the world and the creative communities of the world. We could find ourselves in the ocean, having these therapeutic cathartic experiences, or out in space, getting an astronaut's overview experience. So that's the crisis stabilization. And then people, when they're ready and when they've got the consent of the team, will move towards a monastic rhythm. This is moving from the tiny pods into a collective space. There's an emphasis on simplicity and rhythm, aligning with nature and community. We'll do things like eating in silence, simple work, prayer as a way of life, as a lens through which to see things, and to detox from the world cycles, this constant productivity and dopamine hits and cortisol, and we'll get more into natural cycles of rhythm and work and rest. And monasticism is a way of tapping into ancient wisdom and clothing it in fresh clothes with a new monasticism. There'll be neo-community integration into a new kind of community of like-minded people, people who are all trying to seek wholeness. People transition from their tiny homes in the crisis phase to a communal space and then finally integrate back into the community towards the end. It'll incorporate evidence-based models like monastic practices, of which there's evidence that these things really can provide a beautiful structure, a framework that allows our spirits and our minds and our bodies to thrive. Spirituality will be integrated into all the various levels, and we'll practice the presence of God, infusing ancient mystical wisdom with fresh clothing. And so initially, people will be able to use nature as a way to connect with God. Both Jesus and Buddha use nature metaphors to describe spiritual reality. It can be a way to tap into the intelligence, the logos that undergirds everything. And then there will be various communities that specialize in particular frameworks. For instance, in Aslan's Way, Jesus lit mental health community over here, and then one that focuses more on mindfulness and contemplation practice, and all these various other modalities that come from the East, like Buddhism over here, gathering on a frequent basis to bounce these ideas off each other and to create this synergy where 1 + 1 = 3, something larger than the sum of our parts emerges. We'll tap into a new monasticism. People will then move on to the school for the gifted. In the X-Men, Professor Xavier had a school for the gifted to teach the mutants, the ones with superpowers, how to navigate their abilities, and then how to use those abilities to serve the greater good. So we're going to learn to harness and integrate neurodiversity's gifts. Some of these abilities include creativity, profound empathy, spiritual gifts, including prophecy, out-of-the-box thinking, the ability to invent things, poetry, visionaries. And we can learn from the greats who came before us. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. And we can learn how to harness these abilities within ourselves and to foster cultural integration and synergy, training to integrate these gifts into financially viable and culturally enriching paths moving forward so that it's not only replicable and sustainable, but it can enrich the community around us. Which leads to our final section here on cultural synergy. These round table immersive experiences. What is cultural synergy? Well, it's working to make the world better and generating income for reinvestment. It's a capitalism 2.0, where we're able to use our creativity and neurodiversity gifts to generate income, which is a seed that then grows more plants and generates more seeds. There'll be collaboration with companies, universities, and organizations. The intended outcomes are to have a re-immersion into society as the final stage of the hero's journey. Remember, we go on these journeys not so we can go off and be by ourselves, but to come back to the world that we left once before, integrating these gifts with others. It'll enhance people's personal lives and contribute to societal improvement and incorporate models like social entrepreneurship, combining social goals with business practices, and self-sustenance and community reintegration, strategies for successful reintegration into society, bringing this pattern to our local community and becoming a facilitator there, planting the seeds of growth and change in various different places. So then what are the steps to implement this kind of a vision? What is the window through which we can step into this new immersive world, a new way of being in the world? Well, firstly, let's refine the vision together. There's a synergy that can emerge with your guys' input. I believe that this is an idea that's popping up in our collective. And the more we can refine that together, the more we can take tangible next steps to make this happen. We can bring our insight and experiences to our round table to chart this map together. We can partner with people and with organizations who share our mission. This could include mental health agencies, government branches, churches and spiritual organizations, and venture capitalists. And then we build a prototype, build the church, and they will come. Let's create a version of this. It doesn't have to be perfect in the beginning, but it's going to be so profound and such a transformative experience that it'll get people's attention. And then the funding and the opportunity and the right people and talent will come to expand it and to refine it. We've already started to do something like this in San Diego and to build on the models like Soteria House and create a spiritual transformative center. We have access to properties and visionaries who very much align with these goals. And I know that there's a lot more out there. You guys, this path is ours. How should we walk it? We can walk it the way that we decide to, together. It leads to these bright, new, adventurous horizons. Because I tell you what, there's an unseen dimension, and the neurodiverse can learn to discerningly navigate it, enriching ourselves and our culture. So I'd love to hear from you guys. Come on, please share your thoughts and your perspectives. Email inspiredmindmentalhealth@gmail.com. Come check us out at inspiredmindmentalhealth.com, because we can do it together. If we replace the I in mental illness with a we, then mental illness becomes mental wellness. Let's step into a vibrant, dynamic, color and light-filled future together. The future of mental health starts now.